I am Dave, the Amateur Magus. On this channel I talk all about the mechanics behind ceremonial magic, occultism, esotericism, and the mechanics behind everything you can find within a dusty old grimoire. On this episode we will be talking about the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram, and it's a bit different from what you've probably seen other places. So, if you enjoy my content, feel free to subscribe and share this around where you think people would enjoy seeing it. If you really enjoy my content, feel free to subscribe to me over on Patreon. And if you're already watching this on Patreon, you have my thanks for your continued support. So, every so often, it becomes trendy in the occult spaces to talk about the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram. And recently I got asked about my thoughts about a video on the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram. And I'm going to come out and say it right now. My thoughts on the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram is that people talk about it way too much. I have absolutely no idea why this literal neophyte ritual gets talked about as excessively as it does. I'd like to remind everyone that Israel Regardie wrote a book called The Middle Pillar, not the lesser ritual of the Pentagram. So, as we're going into this, keep in mind that my opinion about this ritual is that it is important, it's useful. When you're starting out, you should be doing it daily as part of your practice. If you are in the Golden Dawn Thelemic and the Wiccan persuasion, at least if you're anywhere in the proximity of ceremonial magic, you should probably be doing this ritual daily. But at the same time, I'm going to come out and say it. As an occultist, I do not think that under any circumstances we need to talk about the lesser ritual of the Pentagram as much as we talk about it. That being said, this is going to be if you've seen the title, the first, last, and only video I make dedicated solely to the lesser banishing ritual. God willing. I don't want to talk about this ritual any more than I have to because it is a beginner ritual. It is a beginner ritual that we give as an instructional tool so you get accustomed to working with the various energies, working with the archangels. Banishing is important in and of itself, but at the same time, there is no fucking reason why people need to make 30 different variations of this ritual. So, let's start with the obvious. What is the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram? The lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram is the banishing form of the ritual known as the lesser ritual of the Pentagram. The reason why it's the banishing version is because you're using the earth banishing pentagrams. Now, the earth banishing pentagrams are going to be the ones everyone is customly familiar with. You start at the bottom left, you go up, and then you circle around through the pentagram. Now, the invoking ritual of the Pentagram is going to be very similar, except you start at the top and you go to the bottom left, and then you follow through with the pentagram. Beyond that, the ritual is broken down into 4 sections. You have the Kabbalistic Cross, which is calling down the light of the divine, and you are effectively waking up your etheric body in a way. From there, you have the formulation of the pentagrams, which is what I just described. You draw the pentagrams, and you draw them, and you vibrate a particular god name in each of the directions. You then have the invocation of the archangels, which is going to be invoking the 4 archangels of the elemental quarters, and they're going to be Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, and Uriel in east, south, west, north pattern. Now, a lot of people, and then we finish off with another Kabbalistic cross. Now, a lot of people seem to have a lot of problems with this very simple formula, which is, to me, as an occultist, looking at this, looking at the tradition that it's from, understanding why we do what we do in that ritual, I find to be an absolute waste of time when people decide that they want to reinvent the wheel with every little fucking detail about the lesser ritual of the Pentagram. So, in order to make it so that no one has to talk about this again, even though they will, I'm going to go through and I'm going to analyze the entirety of the lesser ritual of the Pentagram for us all, and we're going to enjoy it. So, starting off, you face east. Before you even do anything else, you face east, and we already have a problem where people are questioning why would you face east? Well, it's because the original ritual was done by a group called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn, or the GD, as it were, is obviously very reminiscent of the sun. And if we look at it, the Golden Dawn is a solar current tradition. It is very solar in everything that they do. Why do you think everyone had a massive ego in that tradition? That is why. It's because they're all solar correspondent, and they're always doing solar correspondent rituals. The analysis of the keyword, the opening by Watchtower, every single thing that they do is solar in some regard. So, they're going to face east when they're doing their rituals because that's where the sun rises. That is where the Golden Dawn happens. Quite literally. Quite literally, I mean that there is a golden dawn. The sun rises in the east. That is why we face east. Now, I know some people are going to be weirded out by that, because in a lot of older pagan traditions, they faced north, and there is a reason for that. That being said, we don't follow those reasons when we're doing the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, because it was made by the fucking Golden Dawn, and they're looking for where the sun rises. It is not that hard to understand. I have seen hour-long videos about this very concept of, oh, it's actually a blind by the Golden Dawn, because people overthink it and don't realize that they're facing east because that's where the goddamn sun rises. For the love of fucking God, please. So now that we've gotten that tiny detail out of the way that has been living rent-free in my head for long enough for me to need a cathartic rant about it, let's continue. The Lesser Ritual of the Pentagram starts with the Kabbalistic cross, as I've mentioned before, and this is going to be expanding into the universe and then collapsing yourself into a point. You're going to be collapsing yourself into your ritual space. This is to very obviously get you in touch with the macrocosm and the microcosm, so you are becoming the macrocosm and the microcosm, so you are able to better perform your rituals. This is why it's typically an opener ritual, which is just you do it at the beginning. Now, there are going to be god names that you are going to say when you draw the cross, and those are going to be Atu, Malkuth, Vagavura, Vagadula, Le Olehem, Amen. This is a poor man's Hebrew translation of Matthew 6:13. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. That is what that is. So you're using basically psalm magic. You're using a quote from the Bible to start this. So we've already started, and that is why that, you need to understand that the people, even back then, were very pious Christians, even during the Golden Dawn time frame. Now, it's important to note that the Golden Dawn has you touch your third eye, your solar plexus, your right arm, and your left arm. Now, in Thelema, there is a variant that Crowley does where instead of touching your solar plexus, you touch your groin. This is where I have a little bit of contention, and I really don't like this, because Crowley was trying to invoke the sacral chakra energies, we'll call it that. However, in so doing, he ended up creating a sacrificial cross, which is the cross Jesus died on, which in Thelema and at least Golden Dawn traditions has a very specific connotation. That is, it's the cross of sacrifice. In the original Golden Dawn, you're going to be drawing an equal armed cross, more or less. You're going to be drawing an equal armed cross, and this is going to create a stable, energetic source, right? So, to my knowledge, that is the only major difference between the Thelematic and the Golden Dawn style versions of this ritual. So, make of that what you will. I prefer to do the Golden Dawn style ritual because I'm a little bit... I really don't like the sacrificial cross symbolism in the Thelematic one. Maybe that's just Golden Dawn brain rot. Maybe that's just me being programmed that specific way. From here, you're going to go to the formulation of the pentagrams, and this is going to be, for a majority of people, going to be from the bottom left up to the top, and then you're going to follow through, and then you're going to draw the entire pentagram. Now, you're going to be doing this, and you're going to be drawing them in the east, south, west, and north, and you're going to do this because this creates a circle around the space that you're working in. This is just simple circle casting. It's very simple. Now, there are some depending on who you are, you might have some problems with the god names that are said. And the reason, now, the god names, for those of you who don't know, is in the east you say YHVH, and for the south you're going to say Adonai, for the west you're going to say Eheya, and in the north you're going to say Agalah. Now, for these, I really have nothing to add other than the reason you say these is because you are effectively saying an extended name of God in the form of these four God names. Think of them all as one name. That really is the only thing I have to add there, because if you keep in mind that this is not just a banishing the earth, you are also able to use this as an invoking, so you're really just saying a powerful yet truncated name of God. That's what's going on here. And from there you go to the archangels of the quarters. Now, I've seen a lot of people question where the angels should be, and I'm just going to explain this, remembering that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Now, I live in the northern hemisphere, so when the sun rises in the east, due to the tilt of the earth, it actually goes to the south. So when it's noontime, you see this in the sky. You see the sun in the sky at noontime. So that's why noon is fire. That being said, this creates the order going around the circle of air, fire, water, and earth. And the reason why this order is notable is because it is pretty much the only place that this order comes up, really. And the reason why it comes up here is because you are going around the circle from the most subtle to the least subtle elements, so you're effectively going through manifestation. So the divine would be spirit, which would be higher than air. Then it goes to air, which is the most subtle of all the elements. Then it goes to fire, which is less subtle than air. It is, obviously more destructive. Then we have water, which is less subtle than fire, of course. And then we have earth, which is less subtle than anything else. It's going to be the least subtle of all the elements. And if you think about it, you can't really put your hand in earth. You can't, put your hand through a rock unless the atoms move at the exact right space, apparently, which is apparently a thing according to physics, but I've never seen it, so yeah. For the most part, we're going to be going from the most physically solid to the least physically solid, and air being the least physically solid, it's going to interact with things the least. Air is going to, of course, air is required for fire to burn, but air really doesn't interact that much with other things except for wind. Wind is really going to be the only thing that you would see as a physical manifestation of the element of air, for the most part. And spirit is going to be manifesting through manifestation, and magic, and prayer, and all that kind of thing. There is also the element of the archangels of the quarters are placing you in a very specific place. So if you look at where the angels rule over, according to the Golden Dawn at the very least, you have Raphael is Tippereth, Gabriel is Yesod, Mikael is Hod, and Uriel is one of the angels of Netzach, depending on how you interpret things. As such, you are placed exactly in the space between the two paths between the path of Netzach and Hod and the path between Tippereth and Yesod. So you're going to be placed exactly right there when you are trying to do effective magic. You are in between the path of Pe and Semek. for those of you who are more up to date on your Kabbalistic lore. And this is going to allow you to effectively, you are doing work in the astral plane right in the center between Tippereth, which is going to be the divine inspiration sphere, and the magical triad, which is going to be Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, respectively. So, effectively, it is allowing you to more easily do magic in that regard. And you just finish up with the Kabbalistic Cross. We've already covered the Kabbalistic Cross. Now, I want to talk about one important thing. I've been using the phrase lesser ritual of the pentagram. The reason why I'm using the phrase lesser ritual of the pentagram is because it is in fact the lesser ritual of the pentagram. There is actually a greater or a superior, or like a supreme invocation of the pentagram, which involves Enochi, and don't bother. But I see a lot of new occultists or people who are in the occult but less mechanically inclined look at the lesser ritual of the pentagram and they think, oh, this is like this is such a weird ritual. Why are we doing it this specific way? And they try to dissect it without realizing that it originally came from the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And the elements are going to be weird because they're trying to be the elemental order of manifestation. You're going to be manifesting from the most subtle to the least subtle. And the reason why we face east is because that's where the fucking sun is in the morning. Seriously, it's not that hard. Like, people need to go read Agrippa. Please remember that the reason why we do a lot of occult things is because there is a physical connection to it. It's not just all in your head. You need to, like, sometimes look at the physical world to understand why we do what we do. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed and you got to the ending of this video, and feel free to share this with people you think might enjoy it. I would really appreciate that. And if you really enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe to me over on Patreon. We have quite the backlog by the time this is coming out, like, we will have like a month and a half long backlog, and so you're most likely seeing this like at the end of September or the end of like beginning of October, roughly speaking. So yeah. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to do all those things. That being said, I have been Dave the Amateur Magus. I hope you're having a good day. I had a very cathartic day talking about this, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment. Leave a comment what your thoughts about the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram are. And that being said, hope you're having a good day. If you're not having a good day, hope your day gets better, and I hope that you at least got a little bit of enjoyment out of this video and it made your day slightly better. Take it easy. Have a good one. Take care.